Yes, I have loved you with an everlasting love, an everlasting love, an everlasting love. Therefore, with loving kindness have I drawn you, drawn you, drawn you.
Okay, we're recording now.
Hello. Unfortunately, Lauren had to delay her visit with us again, and I know she really wants to do it. So she's disappointed, but things keep coming up, but she will eventually get here and share her story. So we kind of were trying to figure out what was the best thing we need to talk about, and I originally was going to start talking about spiritual warfare, about the two kingdoms of God and the devil and stuff. But then we got a question from somebody, and I thought, we really need to get back to some basics here because of that question, realizing there's a lot of people that don't know whether to even believe in God. So they're definitely not going to want to even think about whether there's a real devil either. And so it's all tricky stuff that a lot of people don't know about, or they can't imagine those things are even real. And so I'm going to have Chastity read the question that we got about this, so we can address that and start with that.
Yes, we have a David Smith who asked, have you done a video on why you believe in God again, Chastity? I like seeing more religious people being accepting of LGBTQ plus people, but I've yet to hear a good, well-reasoned and evidenced argument for believing. And so I thanked him for asking. I guess I'll read my comment and reply to him. Thanks for asking. I have mentioned some about this in our podcast recently. Most of it is documented in the Chandler's Honesty book series, but I do think this topic deserves a well-reasoned response. I intend to mention this in a future video, possibly even tomorrow's episode with my mom.
Okay, yeah. And then he sent that to me, and I thought, that's really a good question, and it's pretty basic to understanding because anymore people don't know what to believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so first of all, I'm going to give my testimony about how I came to know there was a real God and what I went through. And then Chastity's going to tell her story, and she's going to read a little part out of her Honesty series that she tried to advertise before, But I advertised my suicide book, but I never advertised any of my other books, and I'll show you this book called From Horror to Hope. This is my story of what happened to me, and so this is important to understand what I had to go through to even know whether to believe in God myself. And so I'm going to share my ideas about that and share my story a little bit. And I thought I'd show it just in case somebody's wanting to read the whole story. But it's called From Horror to Hope. And anyway, but before I actually explain what happened to me and my background and what I had to go through to know whether to believe in God or not, I want to mention a couple of scriptures that came to my mind because they are very helpful. Even if you don't know whether to believe the Bible, just hearing these scriptures, it may resonate somewhere inside of you, and I know it did me before I even really knew what to believe myself. And the first one is in Hebrews 11:6, and I'm just going to quote these because I have them memorized, but I'll give the references. It's he that comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is the rewarder of them that diligently seek him. So you have to know whether God even exists, and that's pretty basic. And then in Jeremiah 29:13, you will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart. Both of those scriptures were really helpful to me as I struggled to know what to believe about a lot of things. Now, my background was kind of unusual because I was aware there was some kind of evil in the world first, before I knew whether to believe in God. So it's kind of turned around, just like I was saying. Most people want to know to believe in God, whether to believe in a real devil. But the situation I was in, I was raised in a satanic cult, and there was a lot of evil all around me. At the same time, my parents took us to church, where they were pretty much hypocrites and pretending to be these great Christian leaders, and and pretending to be Christians. So I had like two worlds that I was dealing with there. I was very aware of all the evil and hate and hurt and everything I was going through. And so I thought that God must be really bad, because all I knew was these bad people, and my father was so bad, and he's supposedly a Christian. I thought, well, if God's like my father, I can't stand him. I don't want to trust that God. I don't even want to believe there's such a horrible person as that God. So I really did struggle even as a small child, and I even remember in the Sunday school class when I was 3 years old, we had a verse that we were learning, and we were drawing a picture about it, and there was this verse on the page that said, God is love, and we were like decorating the heart and all that. And I remember thinking, well, if God is love, there is no such thing as love. Because, see, I was growing up without any love in my family. And I thought, if there's no such thing as love, and God is love, there must not be any such thing as God either. So even at a young age, I wasn't sure what to think about any of that. And yet I was more than aware of the fact that there's evil, because it was all around me, from the abuse I went through and the horrible things that I knew were going on inside the cult. And so what happened to me through the years, I began to want to believe some of the things I was hearing in church and think, well, then maybe God really is okay, and maybe he's not as bad as I thought, and maybe he really is a good God. I wanted to believe it, but I really didn't know what to think. And I was real confused about it. And then when I became a teenager, even though I wanted to, in some way, believe there was a God, I went through some things where I had a couple teachers in high school teaching evolution and basically teaching that, there really is no God and the Bible's wrong. And back then, they were freely saying things like that, whereas if anybody said the opposite and said they believed in God, they'd get in trouble. And that was even before the laws got worse later. But people weren't allowed to testify if they believed in God, but we had these teachers who were teaching evolution as a fact, and that, and making fun of the Bible. And so I got really discouraged, and I was already depressed because of what I was going through as a child. And so I was already depressed. Then I got really depressed and thought, well, maybe there is no such thing as God, and so life is just meaningless. And what's the use of even being here? And it just really upset me, and I didn't know what to believe or how to believe. But anyway, we went to it wasn't the church itself, but it was like a big county get-together for like churches all over the county. and it had like a different speaker there, and it had music, and a lot of times God began to reach out to me through music. And so anyway, there was something about what the speaker said there in that big meeting, that he was telling a story about a woman that she didn't know whether to believe in God, but she decided to believe in him. And then as she got old, she was glad that she did, because then she knew she was going to heaven. And for some reason that story hit on my mind, and I was thinking, well, you know, if there is a God, I hope I can believe in him. And I want to be like that. I want, when I get old, I want to know that I have hope, and that I will go to heaven, and you know, life can be better. So anyway, I remember that I went forward to the altar, and I prayed all by myself. There was nobody around me praying with me. But I prayed and I said, God, if you really are real, if you really are a true person and a true God, give me the faith to believe in you and to believe that you exist. I just asked him to give me that faith because I didn't have it. And almost right away, somehow I just knew. And basically I was saying, if you show me that you're real, I will give my life to you. And it worked. I mean, it was like I didn't know how, and I know there's a lot of things that are true that we can't see physically. You know, like electricity and gravity. A lot of times we can't see those things, but they're real. And that's what God had to do, was somehow show me how to believe in him, that he was real. And I just knew it. And so I did. I went ahead and prayed, and I gave my life to him. And I had this feeling, and I think it's because of what I had gone through in my life and how damaged I was emotionally and mentally, you know, from the abuse I went through. I had this feeling that God was telling me it's now or never, not because he wouldn't have the patience or the ability to save me, but that I wouldn't be able to come to him later. I think it was because I either would have lost my mind, just completely gone insane, or I would have died, probably by suicide. And it was like God was letting me know, you need to do it now because you won't be able to later. And I felt like that once I gave my life to God, he was able to protect my mind and keep me from going insane. And there were a lot of times when I think I was right on the verge, but God, because I had God in my life, he did protect my mind until he could lead me through what's called deliverance. And that's what I'll be talking about when we talk more about Satan and his demons. It turned out that I needed to be delivered from some things because of what I had gone through, that Satan had taken advantage of me. And I was bound by Satan through the spiritual world with the demons that he has, and I had to get deliverance from those. But I wasn't being taught anything about that in the church either. That even though it was in the Bible, I could see that it talked about Jesus casting out demons and all that. I wasn't taught anything about it, so I didn't even know God could do that. I didn't even know he could do that for me. So later on in my life, he did do that, and that's why I want to get into more about spiritual warfare. But that's how I came to God and began to know him. And every day I tried to pray, but because I had this spiritual battle inside of me, it was like a tug of war between God and Satan. And I could feel it, that once I came to the Lord and gave my life to him, I belonged to him, but Satan was mad and tried to pull me, like, no, she's mine. I could feel it inside of me, like a tug of war. Like Satan trying to pull me back to him, and God pulling the other way and saying, no, she's mine. So I knew something odd was going on. And so I was aware of the spiritual world, but I didn't really understand what all was happening to me till years later. But because I went through all that, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about what was really going on. I had to go back and understand about the abuse I'd gone through and what was really happening in the spiritual world between God and Satan, as well as just to, I finally got to the point where I could know that that God really existed, and I wasn't able to do it until I just asked him to help me do it. And I've heard of other people that do that. They don't know if God's real, and they'll pray and say, if you're real, show yourself to be in some way. And each person, God reveals himself the way they need it. And he did over time reveal to me more and more and more about himself in ways I could understand. Sometimes it was through music, because if people grow up not understanding anything about it, God knows just how to get to them and show them what kind of person he really is. And of course, he did the same thing for Chastity, and we've talked about that before. Chastity didn't believe in God, but I knew that God was going to show him himself, and I didn't know how he was going to do it, but he did it. And so now I'm going to let Chastity tell her story.
Yeah, because I've mentioned this before, and anybody who's read the Channel's Honesty series will know the full picture here. But I do want to kind of summarize this, because I know a lot of people have short attention spans, and they want something that they can really hear to try to sum it up.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I was an atheist for 10 years. I had been raised in churches, and I had read a lot of the Bible, and it seemed that the Bible only pushed me further away from God, because there are certain things in there that I don't think are true, that I can't accept, like animal sacrifice, circumcision, even Jesus dying on the cross. Like, I don't believe in death of the innocent. I don't believe that the innocent dying, solves anything. Mm-hmm. So that was, intellectually, that was very difficult for me. Mm-hmm. And so I was being told by Christians that, you gotta believe the whole Bible, you gotta believe the whole 66 books, otherwise you're not a Christian, you can't believe in God, and you go to hell. And so what they do is they overload my little pea-brain mind with all this stuff. You gotta accept it all as a package. And to me, it was like a meal. The Bible was like a meal, but it was poison. It might be a food I like, but it was poisoned with all this other stuff that I could not eat it, because you have to accept it all as a package. I couldn't do it, and so I gave up. I just ran away. I gave up, and on top of that, because I was transgender and I was having confused gender thoughts, I just thought, well, God probably is going to send me to hell anyway for whatever I am, even though I didn't know what I was at the time. Actually, come to think of it, I still don't. And neither does my poor mom. She doesn't know what I am, but she loves me anyway.
Yeah.
But what happened here is I had a series of experiences with Honesty the Unicorn, which is in my channel's Honesty series. And in part 5 of the story, there is a particular part. There are a lot of moments like this, but this is part 5, the light of truth. And there's a rainbow in the middle of the day, and there's the sun and everything. And the quote here is, "In Animal Sanctuary, the light of truth reflects off the tears of those with a pure heart. By this you shall know that wherever and whenever you see a rainbow, you will know a unicorn is not very far away." So that was an important thing that I included on the cover. But I want to read the second chapter of part 5 here, because this is one of those very interesting things that Honesty had to tell me. And after I read this, maybe you will start to understand why these conversations I have with Honesty, Unicorn, which I think becomes more clear as it goes on who Honesty really is. I'm going to try to do differing voices so you can tell which part is me and which part is Honesty. I'm going to try this. This is going to be funny. Okay, so you say I must love myself, but I thought I already did. Not quite. Your love is not perfect. You seem to often value the lives of others more than your own. How so? Think about it. You are pro-life and against abortion, yet you seem to think your own life has no meaning. Why is your life of less value than that of an unborn child? I'm not really sure it's really a question of value. The golden rule applies to everyone equally, no matter whether they have been born or not. Since I would prefer not to be murdered, I don't want it done to others. And yet you have said that you are only here because your parents created you by having sex, and that you want it to have more meaning than that. What did you mean? I guess I would like evidence that I was actually meant to be here. Meant by who? I don't know. Then perhaps you need to know what it means for a life to have value. Consider the non-human animals that you defend as a vegan. Those cows, chickens, pigs, sheep, horses, turkeys, and countless other animals don't live as long on average as a human, nor do they have the abilities to do the things that you can do as a human. But you don't judge their lives as meaningless, even though they can't do many of the things that you can do, and yet they also came to exist by the meeting of a sperm and egg. Why do you think your existence needs justifications, but theirs does not? Because I am a failure. The other animals never had the chance to communicate with the humans and change their situation. The only hope of reducing their suffering or protecting the lives of animals or the unborn requires adult humans who can at least speak the language of the other humans and convince them that they are causing suffering and beg them to stop. And you have tried to do this many times, yet you say you are a failure. Why? Because people don't seem to be changing. Sure, maybe 1 or 2 people might have gone vegan because of me, but the harm that the majority are causing never stops, no matter what I say. And besides that, even those who are willing to be vegan will not vow celibacy or sterilize themselves to avoid procreation. Humans breed new other humans and teach them carnism and other dangerous religions and philosophies faster than already existing people change. So no real progress is ever made. So you're saying that you are a failure because you have not managed to single-handedly turn everyone in the world vegan and celibate? Yes. Well, then no wonder you feel like a failure with that kind of ludicrous expectation. If you thought your meaning or purpose was to change other people, then that means your purpose is about them and has nothing to do with you. That means that if everyone lived perfectly ethical lives, then you would not exist. Yes, I suppose that is true. So isn't that a contradiction? Why be pro-life about others and yet not about yourself? What? You're a hypocrite, Chastity. You love your neighbors, but not yourself. I guess you're right, but what can I do about this? I would suggest that instead of judging your life and thinking you are meaningless and don't belong, you stop and think about the others and how you are different to yourself than them. You don't demand that the others do the same things as you. Human children don't even work jobs yet, and the other animals don't do that, yet you feel like a failure when you are not able to please the people over you at work and lose a job. What you say makes sense, but I don't know how to belong in this world without proving that I am good enough. And who would you prove it to? Why let others who are selfish and hurt others carelessly be the judge of you? It's not that you are not good enough for them. They are not good enough for you. But I can't say that. Why not? Because I'm not better than others. I'm not more important than them. But you're also not less important than them. And you get to set the standard of which people are involved in your life, not because you are the judge of their life, but because you are the judge of your life and what you want. So first figure out what you want and then work toward it. Don't worry about the standards of society. Do what feels right to you. But how will I know I am making the right choices in life? You can't know for a fact that you're not. What?
You can know for
Oh,
a fact that you're not.
Oh yeah, thank you. I can't read. I wrote it, but I can't read it. You can know for a fact that you're not. What? You used to do a podcast explaining about the illusion of free will and that none of us are really the authors of our choices. You should know better than anyone that everything you say, think, feel, or do is the result of prior causes. So you need not worry about your future because you will always tell the truth as you always have, with one exception. What exception? You have not told yourself the truth that you belong here. You told me I belong, but I still don't know why I belong. I am sure that someone else who is smarter, thinks quicker, doesn't stutter, and has more money could do everything that I have done and even more. I have told you that your value does not depend on what you do. You are valuable just at being what you are. But beyond that, even though others are capable of doing many things more than you, they don't wish to. However much you might wish that someone else could step in and take your place, nobody else wanted to. All the money and education in the world does not mean a thing without an honest soul. I see. At least I can be honest. This is the one thing that makes me unlike others. But is that enough? Enough for what? Enough for who? Tell me, is there anything better than the truth? No. Then who is anyone to say that you don't belong? Who are you to tell yourself that you were not meant to be here? You are right. I am a hypocrite. I have failed to love myself as my neighbor. But at least you understand now. Can you promise me something, Chastity? Promise you what? That you will never say that you should not exist or that you do not belong here. You say this only because you don't understand why you are here. Honesty, are you saying that you do understand why I am here? Yes. And this makes me cry because here honesty was pointing out that I wasn't dying in my own life. I was caring about the lives of others, and yet I was saying I was worthless and a failure, and I was letting all these damaging things that people have said to me affect me and made me feel like I shouldn't be here, that I should just die, or that I should never been born. But honesty is constantly fighting against all these negative messages that the humans told me. And the thing is, humans did me bad. Many people who call themselves Christians did me bad. I couldn't trust the Christians. I couldn't trust the Bible. But when honesty spoke to me in this way, I knew it was telling the truth. Because no human ever talked to me like this. No human ever did. This had to be God. There's just no way, because it wasn't me. It wasn't me speaking to myself, because it was contrary to what I believed. Yet honesty was telling me all this and pointing out my hypocrisy, that I wasn't loving myself as equally as my neighbor. And I think that is one example of how the reason I believe in God is because God came to find me and talk to me and explain things to me that no other human on the planet could have known. No human knew these things. No human knew what to say to me in a way that I could understand. That was God.
Right.
And I know it now. And I was very confused by my conversations with Honesty the Unicorn, because I was an emotional wreck, and these conversations would always take place. I was always having some kind of crisis where something like losing a job or something that was happening in my life, and basically I would get depressed, I would withdraw, and it was only when I got quiet and stopped doing things in this society, in this crazy life, that I could listen to God. Because when I'm busy working and trying to do all these things, it's hard to listen. I get too busy. But when I have a mental breakdown, that's the only time I have time to listen. And it shouldn't be that way. It should not be that way. I need to listen more, and I know that. But honesty told me the truth straight from the horse's mouth. And I think that God will speak to each person in the way that they need. And it's not always going to look the same.
No.
So while there might be God that speaks to Moses in a burning bush, or it might be some other strange thing where, Jesus' disciples had him to speak to them directly in a way they could understand. But what about those of us who can't trust humans? What about those of us who have been hurt by men or women and we don't trust them? And so what if all we can trust is You know, a unicorn or a dragon or a gazelle. We don't know. Whatever
Yeah.
it is, it means something to you. But that's the thing. Only God knows what you will understand. It can speak in a language that you'll understand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the thing. I know
Sure.
God spoke to me because nobody else could have said these things.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So, hopefully that helps answer the question. As far as getting into the deeper, evidence type things about God and the Bible and things like that, I actually did a whole course at a church where I helped answer a lot of questions, the ones that I had, about things, and I knew other people needed to know it. And so I tried to help answer a lot of the questions about what people had about, well, I actually taught about different religions and how do we know Christianity is true and how do we know the Bible is true and comes from God. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that we covered. And then we were trying to go into more about actual, what you'd call a cult, and explain what those were and how that works. And so I was teaching that until I had to leave that church. But I still have all my notes from that class. And I know that I'm supposed to continue to teach it. I may get, that whole course published eventually. But I think I'm going to be sharing a little bit from my course over time to help other people with those same issues about, and like Chastity mentioned, there's certain things in the Bible that it's hard to swallow it all together.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, I noticed that some things do seem to be a contradiction. And people say, oh, it's all God. Well, God's not confused. And he's not going to say one thing and then say the opposite somewhere else. So there really are reasons why some of these scriptures don't come across like they should. And so here's what I finally learned to call myself. I call myself a Bible detective because I search and dig, try to get to the bottom of things. I'm trying to learn the original languages, but I'm studying a lot of stuff so that I can help people see the evidence of what they should or should not believe. And I know that God's helping me do that because there are some things that can kind of get messed up and some seeming contradictions as well. And therefore, that's another thing about my background. Because of what I went through and didn't believe in God myself or was scared of him, basically. I thought he must be horrible like my father. I also had trouble with prayer and the Bible because the Bible was read to me in a very mean way. And so at that time, I didn't like Scripture either. And then I was forced to pray as a punishment out loud. So I didn't like prayer either. Well, now, God's turned all that around, shown me the truth about all of it. And now, after not wanting anything to do with the Bible, now I'm a Bible scholar. Okay, so God turned that one around. And then I'm also a prayer warrior. I found out that prayer does work. And it shouldn't be a punishment. It's a privilege to get to pray. Not only for yourself, but for other people. And it's powerful. So here I am, a Bible scholar and a prayer warrior. Someone who at the time, as a child, didn't want anything to do with prayer or Bible study or God. And see how God led me. So just like with Chastity, he came to me in ways I could understand and revealed himself to me. So when Chastity was an atheist, I knew that God would do the same for her. I didn't know how he'd do it. I didn't know what it was she needed, but I knew God knew. And I knew God by that time. I knew that he was what God was like, that he loved Chastity and would reveal himself to her. And then also I knew Chastity, and I knew she had a good heart and that she wanted to know the truth. So I thought, well, those two are going to get together because I know them both. I know what they're like. I know someday they will meet somewhere that God will reveal himself to her, and she will receive it, and she will know God for herself. So I wasn't worried about it. I was telling everybody that was worried about the fact she was an atheist. I said, I'm not worried about it because I know that God and Chastity are going to find each other someday. And sure enough, that's what happened. And after it happened, I had people say, you always said that would happen. Well, that's because I knew God and I knew Chastity. And that's what he'll do for anybody that really seeks him. Just like those scriptures I mentioned. If you seek him, if you search for him with all your heart, you'll find him. And, and God knows that if you come to him, you have to believe he exists. Well, he'll help you do that, like he did me. I didn't know how to believe. And so that was like my first prayer toward God was, well, help me know, give me the faith to know you really exist. And then I just knew. God just did that for me so I could give my life to him. And that's the only reason I really believe that's the only reason I survived and didn't end up killing myself along the way, because I was very suicidal and depressed for a long, long time. And that's why God's been able over time to turn this around. And now he's working through me to share with other people and help them and to benefit from all the Bible study and prayer and everything that God's done in my life, how he's taken the negative and turned it around into something good and helpful, not only for myself, but for other people.
Yeah. And another thing that's important is, for some people who are like me, and I'm talking about the rainbow people here, it can be very difficult because when you read the Bible and you find stuff that sounds like God hates you, and when you listen to these people who call themselves Christians and they treat you hateful, then you can get that idea that God hates you. And they convinced me that I couldn't be a Christian. But now I see things very differently. That by being committed to nonviolence and being a vegan, I am loving my neighbors that are the animals as I love myself. And so that's part of my Christianity. And instead of viewing myself for being what I am as an abomination or a middle finger to God or something like that, like some people say, instead I see it like the caterpillar. Because the caterpillar is born as a caterpillar, but then it transforms into a butterfly. It has a process. Mm-hmm. But what if the Christians decided to say to this butterfly, you were born as a caterpillar, and God intended you to stay as a caterpillar, but not knowing that that caterpillar becoming a butterfly was exactly what God had planned, and they were just too stupid to know it.
Amen. Anyway, so this does seem like the way God was leading us to deal with these things, and it'll take a long time to cover every little explanation and question, but that's okay. I'm glad people are asking questions. Then we know what it is people need to hear, and then God's able to help me think about what I needed to hear at different points as well, so that we can plan these podcasts according to God's perfect ideas and plans of what the people out there need to hear. And so we'll continue on with various topics, whatever we feel like people need to hear, and we'll continue to teach about some of these subjects that people are confused about. And I don't know if Lauren will come next week, because she also has another situation come up with her teeth that she has to get fixed. So unfortunately, she's had a couple setbacks that's holding her back, but I know she'll eventually get here and share, because she's very eager to. So we're just going to keep on doing what we're supposed to do in the meantime, and just let God bless it.
Yeah. And I think it's important to realize that not everybody can be a committed Bible detective like my mom is. and some of us God gives us the gift of being a scholar and having the time and the patience to wade through all that, to really, because it takes time. It takes time. It takes time
Yeah.
that I know I don't have that kind of time. So I'm grateful to my mom that she's able to explain things to me, that she's able to find out information that I would never have the time to research on my own. But I had to find a way to keep me alive. I had to find a way to keep me alive, to get me to the point, because I was at a point where I was just giving up hope. And when you're hopeless, you don't have time to learn Hebrew and Greek and find out all the meanings of which of the scriptures are true, and
not everybody's called to do a thing like that either. That's why you need other people in the body of Christ that are teachers that enjoy digging into things like that, so they can help other people learn.
Exactly. It's just like the parts of the body, how the body, they all need each other. We talked about that previously. Yeah.
And that's what we are. We're, like I said, God's people are the church, and we're all different parts of the body. Christ is the head, and we all have different gifts that he's given us, and we're meant to share those gifts in helping each other, and everybody's important.
Yep.
There's not anybody above anybody else, or shouldn't think they are, just because they have a certain gift that seems really glorious or whatever. Every single part is needed.
Yeah.
And so not everybody's going to be called to do those things. God happened to give me the kind of mind that enjoys doing that and can do it. But he has given everybody a different gift and a different ability, and everybody needs everybody else so that we can all work together to please God and function as his body here on earth.
Yeah. The eye can't try to be the ear, and the hand can't try to be the foot. It just doesn't work when you try to be what you're not. So you have to find what God wanted you to be. That's what you got to do.
Okay. Well, we're just glad that God's leading us in all this, and so I'm really anxious to see, how this is going to help other people. And like I said, every week we just pray and we look to God to show us what's the next step here, and we know that whatever we share is something that God knows people needed to hear that are out there listening to us.
Yeah. Okay. I guess that's it, isn't it?
I guess that is. We never quite know how to end these things because we talk about a lot of stuff, and some of it's emotional. And so, do you have any more thoughts you need to add at the end here?
Yeah, I have a bit of a joke.
Uh-oh.
I think this is, not everybody's going to understand this, but see, there's all these people in these churches in America, and they're trying to find God. But in Soviet Russia, God finds you. You wouldn't get it. It's a joke of my generation.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I know I'm not of your generation, but I hope somebody out there understands your joke.
Trust me, there's going to be a lot of people who are on the internet in the 90s who are going to know exactly what that means.
Okay, I'll have to have faith for that now.
Yeah, God give her the faith to understand my humor.
Yeah, well, he's done that kind of thing before. I guess that's what it's going to take now.
Okay, bye.
Yes, I